Welcome to Southern Sense Talk on Rumble. You are going to love Annie the Radio Chickadee Ubelis and her co-host, C.S. Bennett. You'll find them live here on Fridays from 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Date Time. Check out their website at Southern Sense, as in commonsense.net. It's that easy, southernsense.net. So sit back and relax. They're informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Welcome to Southern Sense Talk on Rumble. You are going to love Annie the Radio Chickadee Ubelis and her co-host, C.S. Bennett. You'll find them live here on Fridays from 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Date Time. Check out their website at Southern Sense, as in commonsense.net. It's that easy, southernsense.net. So sit back and relax. They're informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watch, words so gallantly stream. And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The family of an Illinois State Police trooper is mourning this Christmas Eve. They're grieving the loss of Trooper Clay Carns. He was killed late Monday night on I-55 just north of Blodgett Road near Shanahan. Our Noel Brennan joins us now from the Will County Coroner's Office. And Noel, you just saw the procession leave a short time ago.
Joe, we saw a black van leave the parking lot here, followed by several Illinois State Police patrol cars with their lights flashing. It was the kind of somber procession that you see anytime a department loses one of its own. Last night, ISP lost an 11-year veteran who was just out doing his job to make the roads safer for other drivers. Holiday traffic rushes past a roadside tribute. A bouquet left for a trooper who won't be home for Christmas.
I-55 southbound Blodgett, I-55 southbound Blodgett. We have a trooper down.
Illinois State Police says Trooper Clay Carns pulled to the shoulder of I-55 near Shanahan to pick up debris from a southbound lane. ISP says the driver of a pickup truck hit Carns as he stood in the lane.
This is a sad moment. We are hurting. The Carns family is hurting badly today.
Brendan Kelly, director of Illinois State Police, shared news of the loss from the Will County Coroner's Office.
Anytime we lose a trooper, it hurts. But today is Christmas Eve here on December 24th. So this kind of hurts in a very particular way.
ISP says Carns was 35, a husband and father of 2. He'd been with ISP for 11 years.
When you're eating your second helping at Christmas dinner, remember there are men and women out there in the night risking their safety and their lives for you.
Carns died on Scott's Law Day, named for Chicago Fire Department Lieutenant Scott Gillen, killed by a driver who failed to move over.
Slow down and move over. We keep saying it. We keep saying it. We can't say it enough.
ISP says John Fleet was behind the wheel of the pickup that hit Trooper Carns, and he now faces a Scott's Law charge. On Christmas Eve, a procession leaves the coroner's office, and a fallen trooper does not travel alone. Scott's Law requires drivers to move over when they see flashing emergency lights. ISP says this year there have been 26 move-over law-related crashes this year alone. In addition to losing Trooper Carns, there have been 12 other troopers who have been injured this year. Reporting live in Will County, Noel Brennan, CBS News, Chicago. Joe?
Noel, thank you.
Well, good morning. The 35-year-old had been with the Illinois State Police for more than 10 years. He is survived by his parents, wife, and 2 young children, and, of course, his law enforcement family. Before mourners could enter the Parkview Christian Church for yesterday's visitation, they passed by Illinois State Trooper Clay Carns' cruiser, draped in purple bunting, a sad reminder of his sacrifice.
The fact that you see so many people so sad and so upset and hurting at him no longer being with us is just an indication of what kind of human being he was.
Carns was cleaning debris on December 23rd on I-55 near Shanahan from an earlier accident when he was hit and killed.
His fellow officers talks about what a great teammate he was, what a person of integrity he was.
The ISP says Carns was hit by a truck driven by 69-year-old John Fleet, who was arrested a short time after the accident. He faces charges under Scott's Law, which requires drivers to slow down and move over when an emergency vehicle is on the side of the road.
We wish that we were not here. We wish that we didn't have to arrest anyone and charge anyone with failing to slow down and move over. We wish we did not have to have a funeral.
Since 2019, 3 ISP troopers have been killed and more than 60 others have been injured after drivers failed to move over or slow down while troopers were on the side of the highway. The head of the Illinois State Police is calling for tougher enforcement of the law and awareness.
If you can do that, then you're going to save somebody's life.
Carns and his family lived in Orland Park. Last week, the mayor there honored his memory and sacrifice by announcing he would be the recipient of the 100 Club of Illinois 2024 Valor Award.
We appreciate the tremendous support from this community, from the entire state of Illinois. There's been a lot of outpouring of love for this trooper.
The private funeral will begin around 10 o'clock this morning, followed by a procession to the cemetery. The ISP is asking people to line the route that you see on your screen there to pay their respects as Trooper Carns is brought to the cemetery. Once again, the private funeral will begin in about 90 minutes. We're live in Orland Park. I'm Eric Rung, WGN News.
There was a court hearing yesterday. All right. Welcome to Southern Sense. We had a little bit of a mess up this morning trying to get our show started. Welcome to Southern Sense. I'm your hostess with the least mostest, Annie, the chickadee, along with Hannah Davis from the Federation for American Immigration Reform, or fairus.org. And I'm sorry for that, but I mean, I was doing a pre-taping of an interview just the other day, and the headsets were perfectly fine. I put them back in their holder. I put them on the desk where I always keep them, and I just trust them to always work. Oh, but now I don't hear you now. Well, those that are listening and watching, you're finding us up on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Rumble, as well as Substack Live. We are now, I got to admit, we had been banned on YouTube using our screen name Southern_Sense. We are back up on YouTube as of just the other day. So if you look for us on Facebook or on YouTube or on X, no matter where you go, it's going to be Southern_Sense, and you know you got our show here. For those that do watch the show, know we start off normal with an introduction and then a dedication to a fallen hero, but we did this a little bass-ackwards, as a friend of mine says. That said, today's dedication did go out to Trooper Clay M. Carns of the Illinois State Police. His end of watch was Monday, December 23rd of 2024. So to finish out with our dedication, we will give you Soul of the Nation by Tiffany as the dedication song. We'll be right back.
Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, we led with grace. Let it be seen, from sea to shining sea, beautiful America, living our legacy. Oh, Father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us be known as people of honor, humble and bold, faithful through fire. Let us hold firm to our convictions with wide open hearts, be sure when our time has come, we gave them hope, we made them strong. Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, yeah, we led with grace.
All right, we're back, and we have an echo here. Okay, hopefully not. All right, okay, now we don't have an echo. All right, we got to find out which Hannah we have here back on the stage. Hi, Hannah. No sound. Oh, geez, no sound. I don't know, girl. Well, anyway, this is live radio, folks. You really can't make this stuff up. For some reason, Hannah's having a little difficulty on her, and hopefully we'll get it straightened out before the end of the show. But we have a lot to talk about. We have ourselves some great guests coming on, and hopefully Hannah will get her sound back. Do we have Hannah back on? Do we have sound now?
I think
we
so.
Have sound. Yes, we have sound. Houston, we have liftoff.
There we have it.
You can't make this up, folks. This is what happens live. Oh, wow. But you can find us, like I was saying earlier, we are now officially back up on YouTube as Southern_Sense, our old name. It's back up. So you can find us then. We can start now building back our viewership on YouTube. So please go to there and subscribe to help us. We got only about 20 people, but that's only the last 2 days. So hopefully we'll get more as people watch and listen. We have two great guests. It's a mother and son team. It's the Sorbo family. You know Kevin Sorbo from the TV series Hercules and several other movies and TVs he's done. But this is his wife, Sam, who's an actress and an author in her own right, and a homeschooling expertise. And her son, Braeden. Braeden himself is an actor in his own right, and he's got 2 books out. Not one, but 2. I mean, this is a family affair with these guys. And so we're going to have the 2 of them on, Braeden and Sam, together at the start of the show. And then Hannah, with the second half, is all dedicated to you to talk about immigration. And oh man, things are going crazy. The riots that were going on in Manhattan just on Wednesday. Oh, geez. It's getting crazier and crazier. It's like something's gotten into the water, I think.
Yeah. I think people are up in arms about the Trump administration actually pulling through with what they said they would do, what he ran on, what he's done since day one in office. And I don't think people know how to react to it. You know, I mean, of course, there's certain people on the right side of the aisle who agree, but there's a lot of people who are upset. There's a lot of sanctuary jurisdictions that don't know what to do with their policies. Some of them are doubling down. You know, it seems like every other day there's something really insane in the news that's centric on immigration. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
We also had that congressman from Delaware that recently, this past week, went down there, Congressman Ivey, I believe his name is, and he's demanding the El Salvadorian government cede to his demands. He's a U.S. citizen on foreign soil telling the government of El Salvador what they should be doing for him, demanding another government behave as if he was president of that country.
Yeah, there's a sense of entitlement there. I'm assuming you're talking about Kilmore Abrego, the man.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because in the same state where he was illegally residing in Maryland, you've got senators and representatives flying down there and talking to him and touting that they're going to bring him back and whatnot. But it's the same state where multiple women have died just going on jogs, killed by criminal illegal aliens, and none of those same politicians have reached out to their mothers at all. So there's a huge discrepancy here. And I don't think it's a right versus left issue anymore. I think people just need to, understand the rule of the law and have some a sense of humanity for people who have lost their lives to open borders, rather than going down there and demanding they have due process, which they're not entitled to. And it's wild. Yeah, that's something that keeps popping up. The Delaware representative going down there and arguing his piece was just the icing on the case to that story. I mean, he was deported, and rightfully so. I mean, he was here illegally. That's one thing. He's got a violent criminal background. I mean, it's not like this guy was a family man or some kind of good guy,
Well, you also have members of the squad in Congress that are going over to ICE facilities, ICE detention facilities, and demanding to be let in to inspect them.
Mm-hmm.
But these ICE facilities are the most highly inspected and regulated facilities. You would see worse conditions. What was that state that they had? Was that Maryland that they had to actually close some of the facilities down? I know it was one of those liberal states that they had the most horrific conditions for just regular criminals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it may have been Maryland. I think going back to the fact that politicians are demanding to knock down the doors of ICE facilities, I mean, it's just painfully ironic. I mean, these people, they don't read federal immigration law. They don't honor ICE detainers, but they want ICE to honor you entering into their facility. I mean, it makes no sense. None at all.
Wait, we want to give special treatment to these illegal aliens. They committed a crime to come into the country, demanding special treatment and getting Medicaid and food stamps and Section 8 housing and you name it, and Social Security benefits that most people fight years to obtain after they've paid into the system legally. But yet you had the January 6ers sitting behind bars. Jake Lang is a perfect example. Never saw the inside of a courtroom, never went before a judge, never had the charges formally read to him in a court of law, never had his day in court for 4 years and 6 days.
Yeah.
Was shuttled from facility to facility to facility. J6s that were refused cancer treatments. They were placed in solitary confinement for doing nothing more than singing the American anthem.
Yeah, there's a big discrepancy in how people view the rule of law and how people enforce law. And you would think that under the previous administration and the current left-leaning individuals in Congress and right now, that they would at least be a little bit more subtle when they choose to blatantly ignore one set of federal law and then blatantly abuse another set. So I agree with you wholeheartedly.
And I'm looking at the videotape of what was going on in Manhattan on Wednesday, and it was a handful of people that were making a lot of noise. And, God bless my guys in blue. They handled it with professionalism and skill. But one of the people that was leading this rally was a Baptist minister. You think, being a man of God, you would seek a non-violent manner in which to plead your case.
And this was revolving around immigration, right?
Yes.
What was going on up there? Yeah, and it's funny, Annie, because I mean the sanctuary movement began in the late 70s and morphed in the 80s because of religious institutions. That's why it's called sanctuary. So it began in the church, and then it was co-opted and abused and expanded, and now it undermines federal law and threatens national security. It threatens local security, as you can see there in Manhattan. So there's an interesting history behind it, but I think some people, religious or not, can twist the words of the Bible, and they use it to support their open border ideology, humanitarian approach, I guess you could say.
Well, when this was happening in the 80s, that was when I was a police officer in Brooklyn, and we got a call to a Roman Catholic church. I was born and raised Roman Catholic, great admiration for the church up until a point when I started to see things happening. And we get the call to this Catholic church for a burglary, and you had the staff there on hand, and they're trying to explain to us that this safe was broken into. So what was in the safe? No sooner did we realize what was in the safe, then the priest came in and said, no, we're not going to file a complaint. No, nothing was stolen. Nothing's missing. No, go away. It was green cards. They were filling out green cards in the back office of the rectory.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's legal.
It's not.
But
No.
the idea was that if a individual felt for some reason they were being persecuted, they could seek sanctuary within a religious church.
Yeah.
They can go knock on the doors, especially the Catholic Church. We seek sanctuary. We're being persecuted. They're murdering the people in my native country. I need to come here, and I need you to help me facilitate becoming a citizen here or migrating here, whatever. That was understood. But then, as you said, it changed somewhere in the late 70s, early 80s. And I think it really came to a head when we started doing this show 15 years ago, where it was the, what do they call it? Brain fart. The non-governmental agencies, the NGOs.
NGOs, yeah.
NGOs came into full fruition. And then you were seeing that these churches were raking in anywhere from $10,000 to $40,000 per body to process them, and then to gain them the benefits they needed or didn't need really, but the benefits they're giving to them courtesy of the taxpayer dollar. Meanwhile, we have veterans sleeping homeless in the streets, and it has really gotten out of hand. And it's the handout is like, give me, give me, give me. I deserve it. Why?
Yeah.
You entered here illegally. If we were to do that in Mexico or any other country, we'd be thrown behind bars.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to demand a job in Mexico, no, they'd say, go back home. You try to do that in China or Russia or anywhere else, it's illegal there, it's illegal here.
Yeah, I agree. When churches started getting involved in the social political movements of any type, including immigration, it's not a good sign. And I do think that, the genesis of the sanctuary movement was probably rooted in something that people could argue was good for refugees or whatever. And now it's, like I said earlier, it's been co-opted. And you're right. A lot of churches are affiliated with NGOs. Most NGOs are Lutheran, Jewish, or Catholic. And they receive FEMA-backed taxpayer federal funds to essentially aid and abet in the harboring and smuggling of illegal aliens. And they tout off that it's for good, that, these are refugees or these are asylees or whatnot. And then with the previous administration, it exacerbated a pre-existing issue. The churches were dealing with these people who came in under some form of a visa, under some form of a status, most likely legally. And then the Biden administration went and created all these legal pathways, expanding parole, expanding asylum to entire nationalities. And that's when these NGOs really needed the federal funding because they had too many people. They couldn't handle it. And they started to proliferate across the nation. And it's interesting. I've seen a couple maps of how many NGOs there are. And coincidentally enough, they're almost always along the borders, and it only got worse. And right now, I assume they don't have much to do. The NGOs, so.
No, they don't. But just before we bring our next guest on, just to let people that are watching and listening, my guest co-host is Hammah Davis with fairus.org. Curtis had to take the day off. Shame on him. But we love Hammah. Always love having her on here. But I got to play this just before we bring our next guest on. Here we go.
Hi there, Sam Sorbo here.
Kevin Sorbo here. And we got a Father's Day bundle on Sorbo Studios. Check it out. One of my latest movies out last Christmas, God's Here. Wonderful family movie. Dads, make some popcorn. And one of my favorite movies I was blessed to direct, Miracle in East Texas, in theaters about a year and a half ago, right?
Yes.
Great movie.
And it comes with a set of pens,
yes,
which have great uplifting messages on them. Be courageous and don't be discouraged. And also 101 blessings Boy, the lights in here. These are 101 powerful scripture verses to strengthen and empower men in their faith. These are cards.
And my son's second book just came out, Embrace Masculinity. It's about lifting men up in a world that pushes them down. We know what we're talking about, dads. Great read.
Get this for the man in your life.
God bless. Happy Father's Day.
All right. With that said, I welcome Braeden and Sam Sorbo, mother and son team. And I could not resist this. I came across that and I said, I've got to do that. Father's Day is just a little over 2 weeks away. And I figured it was one heck of a way to plug the books.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Oh, it is my pleasure. Braeden, you are an amazing young man. You're just 24 years old. And holy cow, what you have been able to accomplish. But then again, by the time I was 24, I had a business and I was married.
I'm not almost 24. I'm a few months away. I'm not quite there yet. So I still have time to catch up.
Okay. But you've got a new book out, which is great. It's called Embrace Masculinity, Lifting Men Up in a World That Pushes Them Down. And I've been reading some of your work and some of your articles. And this is something I was discussing. I do another show called Moms Across America on Wednesday through Dan Perkins Media. And this is one of the things we got into about how our society has become so toxic that the idea of just being a masculine man is wrong. How dangerous that is. Oh my goodness. You are right-wing nuts. I mean, ultra MAGA, whatever you want to call them. But funny thing is that women don't want men that are not masculine.
Yeah, that's exactly true. And that's what we see time and time again. You have all these people online shaming men for following their natural tendencies, the ideas of leadership, protection, provision, and the women are shaming them while at the same time complaining that there aren't any good men. And it's kind of this weird conundrum that we find ourselves in, where when you push people away for so long, it becomes very hard to win them back, which is exactly what the left is now trying to do. I don't know if you've seen, they're starting covering this $20 million plan called the SAM plan, which is Save the American Man, or Speak to the American Man, not my mom's
I
name.
resent the name of it, by the way. I resent it.
Yeah, and they're trying to reach young men, and they're saying, well, young men are actually overwhelmingly pro-choice, pro-gay pornography, and pro all these things. And all of the guys that I know, and all the people my age, are going, what? We just want to be able to afford a house. We just want to be able to buy groceries. What is going on?
It's amazing because I grew up with a strong family, and we grew up to respect the family unit, respect life. As I was saying, I was raised strong Roman Catholic, but I saw things in the church that caused me to go a different direction. And I'm glad I did, because I felt the spirituality in my new church. And this is something that people are also, how dare you be masculine? How dare you be faithful? How dare you be pro-life? How dare you want to have kids learn the basic traditional education and not this new religion they're teaching of wokeness? I mean, Sam, this is something that you've been talking about. You've been on our show before, and I think this was about the time you just started delving really deep into homeschooling, and it was pre-COVID. Matter of fact, it happened to have been 2017, if I remember correctly, because your husband had just come out with that movie, Let There Be, was it Let There Be Light? You were in that movie, Braeden.
I was, yes. Let There Be Light.
Yes, you were. I didn't realize that at the time. But in 2017, after I had you and Kevin on, I had Nick Searcy on at the same time also. Shortly after that, I had suffered too many strokes. And then someone turned around to me and said, oh, by the way, did you know Kevin had suffered? And I said, no. But, it's because of the ability to be strong physically and mentally, I believe, is what helped your husband through it. And it helped me. I still have some residuals. I forget words and I'll forget names. And Hannah knows I'll struggle sometimes going, worry, what's that word I'm looking for? But, it's something to do with being physically strong and mentally strong that they don't seem to want us to be.
They don't. You've hit the nail on the head. That's really the pinnacle point, okay, that sums up all of these different attacks. So there's an attack on the family. The families are destroyed by school when parents submit their children as young as age 4 into the school system. It's the decimation of the family. It is the breaking of the parent-child bond. It is the undermining of parental authority in the house. It's also just the physical and time separation of the child from the parents. And so, if you are starting out a relationship and the person that you're interested in moves to a foreign country, you know that the relationship kind of is doomed. Like, you're not going to get very far if you don't have an opportunity to see each other on a regular basis. Now, today, with, social media and the ability, FaceTime and all of that, if you're an adult, you know how to manage that, but children don't know how to manage that. So you remove them from the home, and the home is less meaningful to them. And the school becomes their family. And that was the transmission belt for all of these other ideologies to enter into the equation. And now we're fighting all these other ideologies because we basically invited them into our culture. And they have now taken over, sadly. So you have one political party in the United States, like Braeden mentioned, that can't define a woman and doesn't know what a real man is.
Well, Braeden, you were homeschooled, and one of the things I hear people on the left say is, well, if they're homeschooled, they don't interact with other kids. Well, the kids that are in the schools already are not interacting with each other because they got their faces buried in their smart device. But, you didn't suffer any for it. You've got friends, people that you can physically interact with, and it's not, who's the next like on Facebook or TikTok or whatever.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me, especially being, a homeschool graduate from second grade all the way through high school, talking to people. It feels like I have to defend the fact that I have friends and a social life. When I tell people that I'm homeschooled, they go, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" And I go, "Well, I'm probably better off than you, but that's up for debate." And so, yes, I have a wonderful friend group. Yes, I have people in my life that I see on a frequent basis, and I socialize significantly better than a lot of peers my age. I mean, there are studies that show that 45% of 18 to 24-year-old men have not approached a woman in real life. So you talk about a lack of socialization. People are too afraid to strike up a conversation with someone of the opposite sex because of how invasive social media is to someone's privacy. So they're now afraid of opening a conversation for fear of societal repercussions.
But Anne, consider that this is an argument for school. The idea that children are socialized in school. Well, show me the class. Show me the socialization class. Because my understanding is you believe in school because you think that school educates. And so you're telling me that you believe that school socializes the child, in other words, educates the child in social behavior without a class? So then how can you even support school at all at being effective at educating the child in any manner when you yourself believe that socialization happens by osmosis, simply by inserting child in group of other children, which, by the way, is not at all resembling of real life in any case, but they are undermining their own arguments by insinuating that some sort of education happens without regard to the classroom. And so the whole thing is absurd. It's also absurd that they would take socialization to justify the fact that even though the schools are failing to educate, there's some good in the schools. That's also a joke. And so what I want people to understand, and why I wrote my book, Parents' Guide to Homeschool, is because I want parents to understand schools fail to educate. They haven't educated for quite a while, actually. It's been decades. And so we need to rethink what we think about education, because we went to school and they trained us to think that they were educating us when they weren't. And when you do that, it sets you free from the system, and you're free to then raise your children and have a family, and you will be set apart, yes, but you will be much better off.
And I think you guys both make really good points. I mean, I was homeschooled as well. So it's kind of interesting that you guys are on here today.
Oh, you're such a baby.
class of 2014. But that was one of the things even back in the day, what I was told. I'd meet someone who, as my father would call, government schooled. And they would say, well, when are you getting to meet anybody? And it's just funny that argument continues to stay when, everything that I've ever noticed about a public school system is that you're supposed to stand in line, you're supposed to be quiet, you're supposed to raise your hand, speak when spoken to. I don't understand where or when the kids have time to actually socialize. There was a small part of my time where I was public schooled, and they didn't even let us talk at lunch. So,
Right.
I just don't understand that argument at all.
Right. The reason that we believe that children are effectively socialized in school is because it's the only opportunity they're ever given. And so they make friends haphazardly, and sometimes it works out really well, and sometimes they become the bullied child, and there's no telling how it's going to work out for your child. But for some reason, we just describe the schools socialize children effectively and very well, and all that. The schools have a big bullying problem.
Mm-hmm.
And we just sort of skip over that. Like, I want my child to be socialized, so I'm just going to send them to school. It's kind of silly. But congratulations that you were homeschooled. That's awesome.
And back to your point about what you said about how it's not a true reflection of adult life. It's not. In work, in college, in your friend groups, even as an adult, you're not surrounded by people that are within the same 10-month age range as you. So it's not
Right.
accurate at all. So no, I definitely agree with your points for sure.
In fact, I'll go a little bit farther and tell people, I know this comes as a big shock, but children are unique. They're not one size fits all. And so I had one child who would have done very, very well socially in school, and two children who were introverts. And one of my children, if I'd sent her to school, she probably would be cutting, would be goth, would be super acting out, because she can't stand to be around people for that long every day.
Well, I didn't have the ability to be homeschooled. Both my parents worked full time. So I went through public school. My mother would not send us to Catholic school, religious school, because she went through it. So she goes, no, I'm not going to put my kids through it. So we went to public school, and I was one of those kids, because the smallest in the class, that was bullied, until I turned around and figured out I got to stand up on my own 2 feet. And after that, no one messed with me. Right. But this is where the public schools fail, because when I went to complain about the bullying, it's like, oh yeah, well, we'll sit you all down and have a conversation. That doesn't work. That doesn't work at all. And the public schools fail in so many areas, because I was there at the start of when they started teaching health. They called it, what they called it? It was health ed at the time. And as a kid, I understood that the door was being propped open. As a kid, I understood the danger of what they were starting to do. And sure enough, now we have generations later, we're having them teach overtly sexual things in the classroom. The original idea was to teach you about the human body, diseases and the function of certain organs and things like that. But it morphed. It morphed into this monster. I
don't know. I'm just going to push back just a little bit, Anne. I know we want to think well of them and think that the initial intention was not to whatever, but they're a bunch of perverts. And I don't know that, it was written by Kinsey, and Kinsey performed experiments on infants to find out how they climaxed and how many climaxes they could achieve sexually, etc. And so when you start at that point, I don't know that it wasn't a perversion from the beginning, and they cloaked it in this sort of responsible health advice kind of thing. But they promised us that this would limit teenage pregnancies. And immediately upon implementing sex ed or health class, teenage pregnancies skyrocketed, and no one did anything. And this is my struggle, is we constantly implement new things first without even testing them to know that they might be effective. We're just on a whim and on a prayer. We fund it, we implement it, and then we never look at the results. And I'm done with that. I want people to know they have every right to take their child out of school. And I also want to point out that while you say you didn't have the ability to be homeschooled, and you seem to credit the fact that both parents worked, I know 2 working parent families who homeschool their children. I did it and worked at the same time. for my children. And these days it is easier than ever to home educate your child while you hold a full-time job. I know single moms who have done it all the way through and never gave up working full-time, because it is not a full-time job to educate a child. It is, in a sense, a full-time job to parent a child.
Exactly. Exactly. And I was lucky to have a very strong father and mother team, but they were dealing with what they were dealing with in my generation. I got to say, I was one of the last classes to graduate where we all met our grade. I think it was 82 was the last year, and I was a little bit before that. So
what does that mean, met your grade?
You met your reading level, your reading, your math level.
Oh yeah, that's long gone. But they dumbed down the curriculum. I'm sorry to say, they dumbed down the curriculum for us as well. And so it's been degrading since the turn of the century. Since school started, they've dumbed down the curriculum. And I just want to point out so that people understand, education is the only business where they will shift the goal posts to meet what they attained. And so they never meet their goals. They just change the goals to match what they actually, attained. In San Francisco, there's a brand new story out that they've decided in San Francisco, because of diversity, equity, and inclusion, 26% will be a passing score.
Oh, geez.
Because, Black kids or something. So 26%. In the state of New Jersey, teachers don't have to pass accreditation exams anymore.
Exactly. That I know. It's also where they don't want the parent involved in the school at all. Fortunately, we've changed our school board here, and we're getting now more traditional education. We're getting also businesses working in conjunction with the school district to get kids that are trained, that can be employable out there. It took us a couple of school boards and a couple of school superintendents, but we changed it. And that's why I always tell everyone, politics starts local. And you got to know what's going on in the schools. I encourage people to go to the schools themselves and open up the textbooks and look at what is in the textbook that they're teaching the kid. A perfect example of the schools turning around and telling the parents to butt out. I don't know if you heard about this one in Carlsbad, California, where they had a BDSM expert to talk to the kids about the LGBTQ community and something called the Gender Sexuality Alliance on an Ally Week. Supposed to be dealing with anti-bullying. Now, I had no idea. This is how dumb I am. What the heck was BDSM?
Oh, dear.
And I found out it stood for bondage, discipline, sadism, and masochism. I'm going, what the heck are you doing teaching these kids this? What does this guy have to do with education? And all, as you said, it is sickness. It is a perversion, and the parents were trying to stop it. And as I'm reading this, I'm thinking to myself, you're looking at it the wrong way. Instead of trying to get the school district to stop it, get your kid out of the school.
Thank you. Yeah. That's what I'm saying is school is tantamount to child abuse. But I'll make it even simpler for parents. Children are born naturally curious. When they go to school, they learn to sit down and shut up. They learn that they have to ask permission to ask a question. So even before they're allowed to learn, they first have to ask permission, which means that they have to draw attention to themselves. That right there, that is anti-education. It's not neutral. It's actually a statement against the education of the child. So you have to understand that from the get-go, they do not want the child to be educated. And you can argue that, well, maybe that's just haphazard. Maybe that's not like the intention isn't there. I don't care. I don't care if they intend or they don't intend. The paradigm is against the child learning. And so why would you even trifle with whether or not BDSM, whether or not I can withdraw my child? There's a court case at the Supreme level right now in Maryland, where parents are saying, I want to be able to withdraw my child from that kind of indoctrination, the LGBTQ indoctrination. And the school is saying, no, it's, there are too many parents that want to withdraw and we can't accommodate them logistically.
You wonder why. You wonder why.
And you go, well, maybe if all the parents don't want their children in it, maybe you should just shut down the damn class. But they're not interested in that. They're ideologues. They're religious zealots. School is the new religion. And if you're not a believer, then you will be apostate. You will be, sent from the church. And that's what they're doing to parents now.
And then,
well, you are. Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say that.
Go ahead.
You argue in an article you wrote, as well as in your book, that they don't want you to be strong, because then you think for yourself, and you can discern for yourself your own morals, your own ethics, your own values, and you can stand up to them and say, no, this is wrong. I'm not going to accept this. But that's what they don't want. They don't want someone strong like you or your mom or like Hannah or myself. They don't want us to be strong and be defiant. They want us to be compliant.
Yeah, they want submission. And so the easiest way to do that is to beat it into people at a very young age, and specifically the young men, because people know that young men physically pose a threat against a leadership of bad people. And so their ultimate goal is the destruction of the young man, because they know that as long as they can keep a group or a large portion of us down, that they will be able to maintain control. It will be significantly harder for people to fight back, because if you don't have an army, then you pose no physical threat. And so that has been sort of the precursor to all of this. I'll throw in a history reference. A lot of people don't realize that what's happening right now happened already a long time ago in what is now known as the Weimar Republic, where Berlin, Germany was the sin capital of Europe. They had people performing experiments on Magnus Hirschfeld had the first ever transgender clinic. And this was pushed towards the masses by and large by groups of people. They wanted this indoctrination, and it led to wars. It led to tons of it. It was a terrible time in the history of the world.
You're saying there was a transgender LGBT pride movement in Berlin.
Yes.
Yes.
And it led to wars, it led to famine, it led to destruction, it led to death. And unfortunately, that is the path that we are currently going down, where something is going to happen where we might not have full control over it. And that is, I don't want anybody to be suffering. I don't want anybody to be in pain. There are videos of people online who are getting their double mastectomies or their hysterectomy. Is that the other one? And they're looking at themselves in the mirror and they're breaking down in tears. And you look with that person and you go, that is just absolutely awful. And I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. And the reason that they do this, like I said, is because they don't want people to be able to fight back. They want you to be complacent, to be submissive, to be easily controlled opposition. And
I'll tell you, if you're addicted to drugs, if you're addicted to hormone replacement therapy, or you're addicted to whatever the medical treatment is for transgender or even changing back, right? You're very weak. You're in a weakened position.
Well, even more so, because that's still a fraction of the population. There's studies that are saying 1 out of every 27 people in Gen Z will identify as transgender. Whether or not they follow through with some sort of hormonal replacement or surgery is really still to be seen. But there is currently some studies out that are saying 80 to 85% of men admit to watching porn, or have admitted to watching porn, with almost at that same number admitting to watching on a monthly and or even weekly basis. And I just put a post up today and it said, masturbation to watching someone else have sex with someone else is just about the gayest thing you can do. It is the weakest thing you can do, because you are psychologically conditioning your own body and brain as a man to watch other men dominate women. And what that does is it makes you complacent, because it kills you spiritually and mentally. And so when you don't have a spiritual or mental life because of that, you become physically absent and therefore pose zero threat until you can rewire your brain, which is an incredibly difficult process that many men are unwilling to undergo. And so they have become rendered themselves as useless in this society.
They're addicted.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
What I found interesting in reading one of your articles about, men working out and why it's beneficial mentally and physically. The one question I had was, why didn't you include women also? Because women, when we work out, also we're achieving the same basic things, but people don't like to see women as being strong. And Sam, you probably had the same thing, constantly being told, "Oh, you're headstrong. You are really headstrong."
No, nobody would say that to me. They know better.
Yeah, so the reason that I made the article specifically about men was because a lot of the online content directed towards men working out doesn't include women. And so there's a very clear overt attack on masculinity and the gym lifestyle fitness that a lot of men specifically go through, whereas women don't necessarily get that same pushback unless it is from men who say, oh, well, you're too muscular, you're headstrong, things like that. But the article was really geared towards the fact that the men are refusing to stand up. And a reason for that is because they're not working out. And so trying to bring young men back to the gym, which Generation Z is doing a very good job of doing. I mean, we're talking about a return to religion. The Diocese of Los Angeles saw a 34% uptick in converts to the faith this past Easter 2025. And then in 2024, they had another 20 to 30% uptick. So you have young men, and these are specifically young men who are converting, who are returning to these traditional roots of religion, as opposed to this kind of networked spirituality that is pushed upon the masses, that so many people just sort of accept as this kind of faux augmentation of what we really know to be true. And so the article and the purpose of the book is to tell people, just in general, not specifically men or women, but that their inherent virtues that they have, the values that they hold to, the tradition that has been instilled in them from the moment of their conception is good and should be exemplified and uplifted as opposed to oppressed.
Yeah, Braeden, I really like the article you actually had put out. I think it was either in the last page or the last paragraph. You said, if gyms are right wing, no, if exercising is right wing, then we just need more gyms. I thought that was pretty punchy. I thought that was a good way to end it. So you're a good author for sure.
Well, thank you.
Love it.
Oh man.
I will say that I think Braden's point is that typically the men are the ones who are the fighters. And so that's why they are being targeted. I don't think that we see women being targeted at the same level. And I think that's what Braden's point is. And he makes a really good point. In fact, he told me something the other day that I just found kind of, it shocked me for a minute. It makes perfect sense, but I'd never really thought of it that way. But if you aren't strong, you don't have an opinion. You can pretend to have an opinion, but if you can't defend your opinion physically, you don't really have an opinion.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I've been called a lot of things because I have an opinion, and wow.
Yeah.
But if,
you have to learn.
if it's a man, I can get away with it, and they say, "Oh, she's crazy." But if a man does it, oh man, you're pushing. I just ease up.
Yeah.
But that's not what we need.
No, exactly. We need men to lay the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal, all the way to the floor. And so the purpose of the differences between men and women are best realized in this sense, right? I like to use the analogy that men are a Tomahawk missile and women are the guidance system. They're the tracking system that keeps them on point. And so it's like both people have a unique purpose. And when they realize that, everything is better. Life is better. And so for young men, they need to hone in their skills. They need to learn how to become the rage-filled barbarian that they're supposed to be. And the young women are the directors, are the guidance. And so that is a beautiful thing. And a lot of people like to quote, a lot of people who dislike that idea quote Ephesians 5:22, which says, oh, women submit to your husbands. And they go, well, see, this Christian idea that you have is all about submission, and women are worse than the husbands, and the husbands are better and oppressors and all this stuff. But they fail to quote the rest of the chapter. Verses 23 through 25, Paul writes, he goes, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church, sacrificing himself and laying his life down for her. And so when we realize that a man's job is purely sacrificial in nature, right? The missile doesn't come home. It blows up. It does its job. The barbarian might not come back from war. He goes and he fights, laying down his life for his homeland. That is the beauty. And that is what they hate so much about Christianity. That is why they don't attack other religions. No religion is persecuted like Christianity is persecuted, because Christianity is true.
Well, yeah. Now we also see they're going not just after us. Now they're going after the Jewish faith also, because we're based upon the Jewish faith, the monolithic faith that was handed down to us. But Sam, you have it where you have now helping with homeschooling. You have your own I'm trying to find the right word. You have your own set of books and curriculum to help people homeschool their kids. Tell us more about that, because you have a new book out that I came across, and I forgot where I put the name of it.
I have it right here.
Parents Guide to Homeschooling, Making Education Easy and Fun.
Conveniently right here. Parents Guide to Homeschool. This is actually a curriculum for the parents. And the idea is, once you read through this and you answer some of the questions that are in here, you'll have a better idea about what you're looking for in terms of the education of your children. And so a lot of times we think the school tells us that the education is so that the kid can get a good job. Well, is that the highest goal that you have for your child? You really ought to think about that, because you can aim much higher than, I want my kid to get a good job. You can aim towards, I want to have a lifelong relationship with my child. I want to have a lifelong relationship with my grandchildren. I want my children to be successful, but I also want them to be caring people and giving people and forgiving people. And like, there's a whole bunch else that goes into that the school never addresses, never even attempts to address. In fact, hides from us, obfuscates from the parents, and tells the parents, butt out, we're taking care of it all. And they take care of maybe 1/10, if that, of the upbringing, of the education of a child. And so my book is intended to set parents free. I call it an emancipation project to set people free from the enslavement of the schools. And the reason I say that we are enslaved to the schools is because so many parents say to me, oh, I could never homeschool my child. But did you graduate high school? Yes. But you feel incapable to teach a second grader? Maybe that says more about you than it does about the school. Like, you got to think about that. You're still willing to send that second grader that you love with all your heart into the system that turned out the likes of you. So that's it in a nutshell. I've got some other books on the website also, sorbostudios.com. I invite everybody to go take a look. sorbostudios.com. There's a number of books there. And we also do events, and I speak across the nation. Next week, Braeden and I are speaking at the National Association for Christian Legislators, which will be very interesting. It's the largest group gathering that they've had so far. And so we'll be there at Liberty University. We're excited about that.
Oh, fantastic, fantastic. Because a friend of mine runs Hill Faith, Mark Tapscott. So he might be there. It's very possible.
Very good.
Very possible. But what we're seeing now in the education system, which what I love about what you do, is you teach people how to live their lives, not just educate on the ABCs, but how to live their lives. There's a recent article, I think it was up on Newsmax yesterday, that people in Canada are asking to be taught how to do their laundry, how to make something else besides boiling some water for ramen noodles. The very basic ABCs to survive day to day, how to balance a checkbook, things like that.
Yeah.
We used to graduate high school and you didn't have to think about those things. But today, these kids, and these aren't things that should be taught in school, they should be taught in the house, in the family.
Right. To clarify, it was an article about college kids writing home. And I can't remember, it's in a book actually, about college kids writing home and saying, how do you get chicken bouillon? Where does the chicken spit out the bouillon or things like that? They're seriously, like, they don't understand how the world works because they've been sequestered in an institution, which I refuse to call an education system, but it is an institution. We are the only culture in the world that institutionalizes healthy children. And you've got these kids who can't. We have a new term. Okay. One of my books is Words for Warriors, because I wanted to codify the actual definitions of words before we got too far out over our skis with redefining our words. We have a new word called adulting, because young people don't know how to be adults. They've gone all through the system, but they haven't been parented to become adults. They've been schooled to remain children, what does that do? Well, that serves a government, that serves a socialist government. So it's not, I'm not saying it's unintentional. I'm saying it's a little bit by design. And in fact, now we have the whole school choice movement, because let's face it, Homeschoolers score 25% better on standardized tests. That's those are their tests, okay? And homeschooled students score better. And in the minority communities, they score up to 42% better. Plus, their test scores are completely unrelated to the education level of their parents. And this is what I want to pound into people's brains. The education of the child has very little to do with the teacher. It is all about the child being allowed to teach himself, being shown how to teach himself, and then being allowed to flourish in that capacity. But the schools rob him of that because they train him to believe that he needs an expert. They train him to believe that the teacher has all the knowledge, and that's who he's going to go and deal with from now on. And so now we're raising all of these children to be dependent on some form of an expert. Somebody show me how to do the thing. And that's why you've got all these kids in college going, but how do I cook the ramen noodles? Do I need a stove or what goes in it? They don't know. And I mean, this is a tragedy. It's not just a failure of the schools to teach reading and writing. I mean, it is, but it's the overall failure of the school. And basically, they've never said that they would do this. It was implied, but it was never stated that they would actually turn out, accomplished individuals, accomplished adults, and they're not.
No, well, Sam, people can find you and Braeden at Sorbo. Teeth in backwards, sorbostudios.com, as well as finding Braeden, you at your own BraedenSorbo.com. Also, you can pick up all the fantastic books, playing cards, and the wall magnet, you name it, all the merchandise you have up there. I'd love to get a copy of your books autographed. Hint, hint, hint.
In the mail.
And I welcome you back anytime. There's so much more to talk about. And Braeden, you're going to be one powerhouse. Don't worry, honey. You're going to be just fine. You're going to be just fine. 40 years from now, you're going to look back at yourself and said, I wouldn't have changed a thing.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, God bless. And thank you for the hard work you both do for everyone.
Thank you, both of you.
All right. Check them out. Sorbo Studios. Try to say that 3 times fast.
Wow. They're a dynamic duo.
Yeah, they are. And I swear, I mean, I can actually see them on their own changing our education system or institution, as she correctly says. Because growing up at the age I did, it was at the height of the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
The war protests, the start of the love season of love and everything else. And we didn't have the electronics that the kids have today. Imagine if that had been thrown in that mix at that time. Oof.
Yeah. I think I was the last generation, us millennials, where your baby photos were not on like an iPhone, but your graduation photos were. And so it's kind of like the dawn of technology being right there in your pocket. And I never really had a good segue for it, but I wanted to bring up, I mean, she mentioned, Sam mentioned bullying really bad in schools, and it is. But the schools are indoctrinating the children with all these different ideologies, and they are. But something I've realized in my immigration research is that, I mean, the amount of sanctuary school districts that there are across the nation that are harboring illegal aliens, that are not honoring warrants presented by ICE, that are making ICE do the whole rigmarole and the runaround and not letting them capture people that are within the schools is insane. And I know a lot of people who defend those school districts will say, well, why in the world is ICE? Why are they chasing down children? Why are they in a school? That's horrible, But the thing is, if ICE is going to a school, it's because either one, someone's teaching there who has, an order for deportation, or who has abused someone, or is a criminal illegal alien that made it through the cracks and is teaching at the school, or 2, it's a 17, 18-year-old kid that's involved with criminal elements, gang activity, that kind of thing, MS-13s all throughout the schools. And so, like I said, I never had a moment to really bring it up, but the schools, I mean, they're rotting from within, that's for sure.
Well, there were instances of individuals in their 20s, some of them heading towards 30, pretending to be a 17 or 18-year-old kid.
Yeah, it's
And
like
it was
21
their
Jump Street.
excuse. Yeah. So, there was a lot of hanky panky, if you want to say it politely. But you have a sanctuary report coming out this Monday. What's that all about?
I do. It's been a long time coming. It's taken me well over a year, probably a year and a half. But through my research, I've identified roughly 900 sanctuary jurisdictions across the U.S., which is astonishing. It's almost sobering. It's a over 50% increase than the last time a massive sanctuary report was done by FAIR. That was back in 2018. And throughout my research, I've noticed some correlations. A lot of sanctuaries tend to pop up out of nowhere late 2017 and late 2024. And I was racking my brain. I was like, well, I wonder why that is. And because it correlates with President Trump being elected. And he's got a very staunch pro closed borders, pro rule of law approach to immigration. And I think a lot of sanctuaries doubled down. It catalyzed, them creating their sanctuaries, and then his second, election where he won, it catalyzed them doubling down and reaffirming their pre-existing sanctuary policies. In some cases, strengthening them. LA is a really good example for that. They had been operating as a sanctuary for years. I think it was LA. It was like November of '79 where they first implemented sanctuary policing policies. But none of those were codified until just like a couple months ago, where they put through an ordinance where they've codified things they've been operating for under the table for years, essentially. And it's because of Trump. People are doubling down on their policies. I've noticed a proliferation, as I mentioned earlier, of sanctuary school districts. A lot of places expanding pre-existing sanctuary policies, a lot of statewide sanctuary policies. From the research, I found 17 states and Washington, D.C. that have implemented pro-sanctuary policies that they enforce on all of their constituents. Every municipality and jurisdiction, whether they agree with it or not, they have to follow them. So it's been a whirlwind, and I'm very excited for it to come out on Monday, especially on the tails of the DHS's list that came out yesterday evening. So,
what was that list that came out? I missed that.
Yeah, the DHS. Well, Trump, well, it would have been 30 days ago as of yesterday, pushed through an executive order saying, "Hey, I'm going to pull federal funding from all the sanctuary jurisdictions. DHS, DOJ, you guys work together, get me a list within 30 days." And so they released one yesterday evening. It's a good list. It's got solid bones, but there's some inaccuracies, and there's certainly a lot of things left out. So I'm really excited for mine to come out on Monday, so we can show the administration what they're really working with when it comes to jurisdictions, give them a really good blueprint of who to go after, who's the most egregious, that kind of thing. So like I said, located 17 in Washington, D.C. The last time we did it in 2018, there was only 11 sanctuary states. So it's skyrocketing, and it's actually really shocking.
Wow. Because I know South Carolina, here we passed the law saying that no cities can be a sanctuary cities, but some of them still try to slip through.
Yeah, there's one in South Carolina. It's Charleston County. That sheriff down there, she's I think, what's her name? Sheriff, it's an Italian last name, Graziano or something. On her first day in office, she got rid of the 287G agreement that the local sheriffs had with ICE, which, for people who don't know, it's an agreement that local sheriffs are basically allowed to enforce federal immigration law. So they're allowed to ask you your immigration status. They're allowed to honor detainers. They're allowed to send you and release you to ICE, that kind of thing. And so 287G agreements are actually very, very helpful because there's only so many ICE agents out there. And really, a lot of the nitty gritty work is on the state and local level. So yeah, like Charleston County, South Carolina, her first day in office, she got rid of that. As of October of last year, she had denied over 50 detainer requests, which means she allowed 50 criminal illegal aliens out into the streets in Charleston County, South Carolina. So, yeah, you'd be surprised. You've got some pretty woke jurisdictions that are under the discretion of city councils, of school districts, of left-leaning sheriffs, and they can be in rural areas. You never ever think it, but happens a lot.
Well, if you can send me the list for South Carolina, because I happen to know someone, was that the Attorney General? And maybe just drop it across his desk, because I saw his dad just a couple of days ago, or actually 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I saw his dad.
Yeah.
Yep. As it is. Oh, I don't know if you can see it. That's his dad.
Huh?
Joe
And
Wilson.
there you are. Good to know. Yeah, I'll email that to you. I mean, like I said, it's just the one jurisdiction in South Carolina. You guys are sitting pretty compared to some of the other states. I found 22 states that have, on the other side of the coin, have passed anti-sanctuary statewide legislation, which is a good thing, right? But only 3 of those states actually have no jurisdictions within their borders. So a lot of states, they think they're doing enough because they're passing these laws, but there's no teeth in it. There's no enforcement mechanisms to withhold funding. And so the jurisdictions continue, to flourish, because there's no backlash. A lot of times people don't even know. And so, yeah, the 3 states out of the 22 I found that were anti-sanctuary states that didn't have any jurisdictions were Arkansas, West Virginia, and Montana. I mean, and I don't blame Montana. I mean, there's hardly anybody even in Montana. So that kind of makes sense, right? But,
Oh, they're still filming Yellowstone over there.
Yeah, they're too busy. Yeah. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind. It's been wild. If anything, it's really helped with my geography.
Well, there's some other things that came up. Like Trump signed an executive order requesting 20,000 National Guard members for immigration enforcement. Now, previously he had asked for the military to assist with border security. So how is this different?
Yeah, so let me take you back a little bit, because Trump now has 2 military buffer zones at the border, one in Texas and one in New Mexico. And those were established by a presidential memorandum he pushed through a couple months ago. It basically allows military enforcement to support efforts against drug and human and illegal trafficking, while sending a clear message that the sovereignty of the nation is going to be respected via military force, right? So he had those established, but then, he was kind of like, well, I've got the buffer zones, I need the military. So that's where what you said comes in, where the DHS by Trump essentially requested, 20,000 National Guard troops to go down to the border. Last I've read, last I've heard, the Pentagon is still considering this request, is how they put it very kindly. But if it's approved, that means that all state governors under Title 32 of United States Code can send their National Guard. They can activate their National Guard and send them down to the border to further support the, I guess the securing of the border. And so, there's not everybody's happy about it, though. I know the ACLU, they're always angry. They're upset about the whole National Guard thing and the military buffer zones. They think it's like, what did they say? It's like an erosion of civil liberties, and it can ruin regional relationships. And I'm thinking, regional relationships, that's laughable, because our neighbors south of the border have allowed drugs to infiltrate our nation and kill our loved ones. Their corrupt law enforcement agencies turn a blind eye to human and smuggling. And so I'm thinking, I don't care if it ruins, a little bit of what there is of a relationship right now. And I think that the notion of us enforcing our actual rule of law and enforcing immigration law at both borders, if that's going to erode trust with another nation, then I don't think they were worthy of our friendship in the first place, to be quite honest. But yeah, the 20,000 troops, they're basically to fill up those buffer zones. So hopefully the Pentagon does approve that request.
Well, just to change the subject just a little bit, because I'm thinking, as you're saying, taking away funds, Harvard University, and they're kicking and screaming. We have I think it's something like 300,000 Chinese nationals as students here in the United States. And the only way they get to become students in the United States is if they have the blessing of the Chinese Communist Party. And they're sent over here with the task of they must bring back something, whether it is some new formula with technology, patent information, something, military information, and a lot of these students that are working in these college laboratories, university laboratories, end up being Chinese national students. So we have a lot of technology and knowledge and things being stolen and sent back to communist China with these students. So as we're saying, let's pull the funding from Harvard. My husband was going, well, you can't do that because then all this research and stuff they're doing, it's going to stop. Well, maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, or maybe an American citizen can pick up where they left off. Because a lot of the times, you're right. If they're not sending the intellectual property that they learned on their foreign visa, student visa, they're just sending themselves back and using, the renowned education they received in some of our most sought after institutions as a catalyst overseas to start their careers back in China. So it's like a double-edged sword. If they're not doing one, they're doing the other. And I was actually watching an interview recently, and someone said, well, these foreign student visas make up so little of the amount that we admit every year. I'm like, yeah, that may be true when it comes to the visa alphabet soup that we have, but when it comes to Harvard admissions, it makes up over 50%. So, you gotta scale it back and look at, what's actually going on. And it's, I think, it's a national security risk, right? And then kind of going back to what Sam was saying earlier with schools, I mean, it's all the way up to the colleges too. They're indoctrinating as well. I mean, there was Jewish professors that couldn't even go into their own classrooms because of all the Middle Eastern foreigners that were studying there, blocking them from being able to get into the hallway. And so it's like they were on foreign visas. They're supporting foreign terrorist groups, foreign terrorist ideologies. They associate with things like that, and we're just supposed to be complacent. So no, the Trump administration, and I think this is gonna, they've paused the whole applications for the visas, but I think there's gonna be a lot of litigation, a lot of costly time. It's gonna take forever, litigation, and I think some of the things he's already pushed through have already been slightly adjudicated, but I think that he's going to have a lot of roadblocks with this, much like when he did the birthright citizenship. Some things are really big, and a lot of people have opinions, and this will arguably affect a lot of people. And so I see this being a lengthy process until we find a resolution.
Yeah, well, what people don't understand is that in order to get those visas to come here, as I said, they have to make an agreement to bring something back, to send something back. If they fail to do so, their family is put in peril. They are either imprisoned or executed. And with that hanging over their heads, they must produce.
Yeah.
So it's an open book to just stealing our technology, our everything. And you add into that the record number of illegals coming over the border of Chinese descent, military-age men of Chinese descent. We have a whole army here. We have a whole Chinese army here.
Yeah.
And we're too stupid to understand that.
Coupled with the fact, so they're infiltrating our schools, they're infiltrating our borders.
Our companies.
And our companies. Yeah, the H-1 visa is riddled with fraud. And then on top of that, the CCP is killing us from within. They're the one who they're the ones who make the precursor chemicals. They give to the cartels, and then the cartels turn the precursor chemicals into fentanyl. And then now there's enough fentanyl in the nation to kill everybody like 5 times over. I think that's the last CDC statistic I read. And so, I mean, it's Rome didn't fall in a day, but they did fall because they couldn't control the masses. They fell from within, some could argue. And I think, the Chinese Communist Party doesn't have to physically wage war on us when they've infiltrated us, like I said, and we're just coupled with the social strife we have, immigration related or not, within America. Gosh, we're so divided over every little thing. I mean, give it 20 years if we keep going the way we're going. So, which is a great thing why we have, like, going back to the 20K National Guards, or those military buffer zones, or the fact that President Trump even won the election because he's strong on immigration. I feel safer. I think most people do. I saw a recent Reuters poll actually that said that people feel safer walking around at night, and people he's got high approval rates right now, and there's just, it's a lot of good going on, but we can't be complacent or ignore the noise in the background either with the visa issue, and the border's never going to be completely porous or completely secure. So cartels are already rerouting. Coyotes are already smuggling people. Maine has seen so many crossings just in this past month alone. It's unusual because they know that now there's 2 new military buffer zones at the southern border, and they know that Trump has asked the DHS to ask the Pentagon to give him 20,000, National Guard troops. They know that. It's a $50 billion industry plus every year, cartels and smuggling. And so now they're going to rural, remote northern Maine and crossing that way. So it's much like a house or raising a child. It's never completely finished. And so there's always going to be loopholes, and we're always going to have to keep an eye on those things and fight them. And we can cheer on the wins we have, but we always have to realize that it's a never ending battle that will continue to happen when it comes to the cartels.
So people don't understand also the northern border. It's not like the southern border. There's no wall. There's no fence. You can walk across a farmer's field and be in one side is Canada, the other side is the United States. So it's very easy to come across the northern border. Hence Trump's fight with Canada right now to secure the northern border. But every single state, every state is a border state because they have an international port of entry as an airport.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have people coming over, overstaying their visas or lying for the purpose of them coming here and remaining. So it's just not a one-pronged fight. It's a multi-pronged fight.
And it's, the northern border is also interesting because it's so undermanned. I mean, I forgot who it was, but it was some kind of border patrol, previous border patrol. He was saying on average back in like the 2000s or something like that, for every like 60 miles, there was like one border patrol agent. And then, as the years went on, it was like for every 150 miles, there was just one border patrol agent. I mean, that place is very unmanned. It's desolate in a different way than the southern border. It's not trafficked as much as the southern border, but it's still definitely up there. I mean, the numbers are record numbers in Maine right now because of stuff I just explained. And yeah, so you're right. I mean, overall, CBP has said we've got an 88% drop in nationwide border encounters, but it doesn't mean that it's not still happening. Border patrol apprehensions between ports of entry have dropped, I mean, almost 95%, but there's still that other 5%. And so it's always something we can do better. And I think that's part of the administration with the big beautiful bill. Isn't that what it's called? They're trying to fund more border patrol, more customs and border patrol and ICE agents, give them more money, have more money for the agencies so they can hire more, so we can secure the border even more.
Well, Anna, we're out of time. This whole hour and a half is going and even though we had a rough start, we made it through. We made it through. You're a trooper. But people can always find you at fairus.org. God bless you, Hannah. We'll be talking soon. All right.
Thanks for having me.
More often. All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Until then, I say goodbye and God.
I'm praying for this land I love, America, America, the home of the free. But there are people making plans to change America. They've no respect for her or what matters most to me. That's why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Mourn for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe with God we trust, and the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not America. We've got to rescue her. You know it's up to me and you to see the truth behind their lies. Don't change America. God bless America and the red, white, and blue. That's why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. No, for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe in God we trust and the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to save America. For the friends we have loved and lost, and we still believe in God we trust, in the freedom our forefathers granted us. We know it's not too late to save America. Save America. Let's save America. Together we can save America.